Hello readers, I'm the Avid and today I'm going to talk about 5 more geopolitics books that you should read. First up we have The Revenge of Geography by Robert Kaplan. So of course Kaplan is the best geopolitics author I've read so far. And this is a 300-page book which covers the history of geopolitical thought, but then also looks at the geopolitics of different regions such as China, the Indian subcontinent, Europe, Russia, and the Greater Middle East. And it's a very nuanced neo-realist take on geopolitics. So it balances out the liberal humanism of liberals with the cold geographical realism of realists and fuses them together into a more complete take on the geopolitics of the 21st century. Next book I think you should read is a recent book, actually, The Future of Geography by Tim Marshall. So this is basically a book about space geopolitics, and it talks about the main space powers. So the United States is the main one, but you have the rise of China now, and you have the decline of Russia. But he also talks about some of the more minor space powers, and he gives a brief history also of astropolitics and the space race. And he also talks about how the international treaties that govern space right now are incomplete and that we need new ones. So definitely a good primer on space geopolitics. Next up we have The Avoidable War by Kevin Rudd. Now Kevin Rudd is a former Australian Prime Minister who has visited China several times and met several Chinese statesmen, including current leader Xi Jinping. And he talks about the coming cold conflict between China and the United States, and he argues that while you may have war, it can be avoided through managed strategic competition. And he also talks about the American and Chinese point of views. So about half of the book focuses on China's 10 concentric circles of what they actually want, which includes securing power for the Chinese Communist Party, becoming the main power on the global stage, securing the environment, keeping the Chinese workers happy, among other things. And it's a nuanced read talking about both the flaws and the strengths of Americans and Chinese in foreign policy and in domestic policy. So that's a good introduction on the current Sino-American Cold War. Next book I would recommend you to read is World Order by Henry Kissinger. Now of course Henry Kissinger is the world famous American statesman, former Secretary of State under Nixon, and famous realist. And in this book he discusses the different visions of world order throughout the world. So for example, in Europe they focused on the balance of power. Same thing with Asia, while in the United States they've always had a liberal humanist bent. To understand the geopolitics, you need to understand the perspectives of different sides. You cannot just understand the Western American perspective. You also need to understand the Chinese perspective, or the Indian perspective, or the Islamic perspective. The Islamic perspective, for example, has a world expansionist mindset of spreading Islam throughout the world. That's what they mean by peace, that everyone is submitted to Islam. While I do not agree with everything said in this book, it's definitely a worthwhile read to better understand the world today and how we came here. And the final book I'm gonna recommend is The Almighty Dollar by Darshini David. And this is a book that demonstrates how the American dollar is the dominant reserve currency of the world. And it's a book that shows the journey of one American dollar throughout the world through trade. And this quite well illustrates how much globalization has spread and how dominant the United States is through dollar diplomacy. So those were 5 more geopolitics books I recommend you to check out. And if you're interested to learn more about geopolitics, then you can check out this playlist where I've reviewed over 30 global politics books. Otherwise, I'm the Avid Reader, and I will see you readers next time.